Man, TF Prime's really been hitting out of the ballpark lately, hasn't it? And it continues to do so with the second episode of the final season, Scattered, in which we continue to follow the various characters as they're scattered about. Heroes. Anyway, the Decepticons have come together more cohesively than they have throughout the entire show so far. It's a true reversal. Like, whereas the Decepticons always had their central base, and it was only Starscream who was really left on his own for any length of time, they've always felt less than a unit. Whereas the Autobots had their base, they worked together. Maybe they made stupid decisions sometimes, but they always seemed to be at least heading towards the same goals, even if they didn't always agree on how to reach them. Now, the Decepticons all seem to be working together pretty well. Starscream still has his issues. He's still trying to one-up Megatron's new scientific lieutenant, Shockwave. And he definitely makes mistakes here, and it's absolutely hilarious, but I'll talk about that in a minute. But having someone to actually compete with, while still wanting to truly earn Megatron's favor this time, actually seems to bring out the best in the guy. Meanwhile, the Autobots are scattered to the winds, as RC puts it in the episode. And not just our core Autobots, but the entire faction. The Decepticons keep growing stronger and stronger, bringing in new members, but the Autobots, they don't. And even the Autobots who are here, involved in this fight here today, don't all seem entirely on board, since when Raph and Bumblebee come upon Ratchet hiding out in an old dump, he's very persistent about his desire to not get involved in the fight again, because he doesn't feel like it's worth it to keep trying. Even if we do see later that Raph's words do reach him, and he does come back later. The story of this episode would almost feel stagnant, if not for the fact that some stuff does progress here and there. Like Wheeljack, for example, manages to get free of the Decepticons, and again, this comes back to that stuff about Starscream that I'm going to talk about in a second. So it wasn't entirely his doing, but still, he ends up one-ing up Starscream in this particular instance, outsmarting him when Starscream feels at his smartest, and that's definitely a victory for our heroes. And in the end, one of those scattered Autobots does end up arriving on Earth, a character that fans of the original series will recognize, at least in a form, that being Ultra Magnus, the palette swap of Optimus Prime that was made famous by the old animated Transformers movie. And right now, with a character like Smokescreen seemingly filling the role of Hotshot from that movie, and now Ultra Magnus showing up in a body that's literally just a repaint and slight retool of the Optimus Prime character model, it seems like the events of that movie are going to play out in some form soon. And even though I know that they don't exactly, I remember at the time being super intrigued by this. It's a very intriguing turn of events. It just so happens that Ultra Magnus's appearance at the end of the episode happens to coincide with Shockwave making a big play that more than offsets it. Because the main through line of this episode was Starscream stuff, which I was delighted by, considering that Starscream is one of my favorite characters in this, if not in all Transformers media ever. He genuinely does want to earn Megatron's favor. He wants to earn back his place within the Decepticons and then secure it for all time. That's where he is now. And when his torture doesn't yield anything from Wheeljack, he is of course super miffed when Shockwave says that he'll perform a cortical psychic patch, which I don't know why they didn't just do that to start with, but whatever, to see if Wheeljack knows where the Autobots might have ground bridged away to. But he genuinely doesn't, so that fails. And this is when Starscream has one of his best ideas of the entire show, because he says that now that they know they can't get anything out of Wheeljack, they don't need him anymore. They're gonna execute him. And he says it with that very Starscreamy kind of glee, that, man, I hate it because I hate him as a person, but I love it because I love him as a character. And then we cut to Wheeljack being walked out atop the giant Dark Mount Tower to be dropped in that thing that killed the Terminator in Terminator 2 by 4 flying Viacons. But he gets free, and the subsequent escape is just absolutely visually fantastic. I'm going to show a little bit of it here, but like, you really should watch the episode for it. It's great. And Starscream, in his arrogance, it seems like that's the kind of mistake he would make, just sending some of his minions out to execute a guy that he is probably afraid of, right? To some degree or another. And then the execution going foul and that guy getting away. And Megatron expects that that's what it is too, and gets super pissed. only for Starscream to reveal that he placed a tracker on Wheeljack to see if Wheeljack goes anywhere where one of the other Autobots might be. And even though Wheeljack doesn't know specifically where the other Autobots ground bridge to, because of an old Wrecker protocol, he knows where to go to meet up with Bulkhead. And it isn't until this plan fails, only because Wheeljack was savvy enough to realize that something might be up, that Megatron goes to Shockwave for a new plan. Shockwave goes back to his lab on Cybertron, where he worked the entire time he was trapped there since he was presumed dead, and comes back with a resurrected prehistoric Transformer who we will come to know over the course of this season as Predaking, a giant black and orange killer dragon monster. And easily one of the coolest designs in this entire show. We don't see his full design here yet, but even what we see is magnificent. Even Megatron is intimidated by this guy. And it's a whole episode of Starscream being bounced around like this between his own ambitions, his own intelligence or lack thereof, and his fear of Megatron retaliating against him, even though Megatron doesn't seem super ready to do that right now. It seems like he's cool to give Starscream more chances, because what he said about them needing to be a united front against the Autobots is true. And seeing him in that much distress, it was a lot of fun, because a lot of the fun of this character comes from seeing him get his comeuppance. I also really liked the idea, because I had forgotten about it, and didn't really think of them using it, but I liked the idea of the Autobots, or at least Bumblebee and Raph, going to the same old derelict Decepticon ship that Starscream used as his base for a while to set up a new base there. It's a genuinely good idea that pulls from the continuity of the show. If this episode has any weaknesses as an episode, they stem from the simple fact that this season so far, I know we're only 2 episodes in, and it does not yet establish a pattern, but still, because this episode doesn't resolve much either, but the season's been super serialized so far. So while stuff definitely happens here, nothing is resolved, and this doesn't feel like a cohesive, coherent, single story. But it's still quick and snappy and clever. The dialogue is good. There's some good scenes between RC and Jack in this episode too. For example, RC is my all-time favorite character in this show, even more so than Starscream, and getting to see her be all philosophical about how much she wishes that her people weren't dead or lost. It was a real treat, because the voice actress did a great job of portraying her there. So, stuff does happen, and there is definitely good here. Even the stuff with Optimus is touched on when Smokescreen goes to look for the Forge, realizing the Forge could be used to fix Optimus. But it doesn't really feel like there's a resolution. And I feel like that hurts the episode on individual viewing. Still, Scattered is a really good episode. It continues to show us the ongoing consequences of the Decepticons' latest push, as well as help to establish the new status quo of the show. And it's got me hyped for what's coming next, and that's really all it's supposed to do. Right? And sell me toys, but I already have all those, so, As per usual, though, guys, what do you think of the Transformers Prime episode Scattered, if you have seen it? Let's get a discussion going in the comments section down below. And while you're down there, you might as well like the video, share it with anyone else you think would enjoy my content, subscribe if you haven't. You can also check out links to my various social medias, as well as the many ways you can help with the channel. Those will be in the video description, but either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.